Our top story for this half hour: Iran urges the international community to put on trial those who provided the regime of former Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein with chemical weapons during Iraqi-imposed war on the Islamic Republic in the 1980s. Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif has made the appeal on the anniversary of the 1987 chemical bombardment of the northwestern city of Saddam. The attack killed scores of Iranians and injured thousands more. Zarif said the international community should take responsibility over its inaction against the crimes committed by the Saddam regime. He said Iran is following up the case in international courts. The top diplomat also called for complete destruction of chemical weapons across the world. He noted that the Islamic Republic is one of the main victims of weapons of mass destruction. The families of Saddam victims still urge the international community to bring the main perpetrators to justice. However, the international community has so far failed to take heed of their demands. Joining us now from Ontario's international human rights lawyer, Edward Corrigan. Mr. Corrigan, please walk us through these recent comments made by Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif.
Of course, the minister is making a very valid point. Chemical weapons are universally condemned. They're restricted, if not banned outright in international law. But there is a degree of Western hypocrisy. The United States is probably, I think, is the biggest holder of chemical weapons on the planet. Other European powers, I suspect the Soviet Union also has chemical weapons, and they, of course, don't use them. In fact, the Nazis had large stockpiles of chemical weapons during the Second World War, but they didn't use them because, of course, they feared retaliation by the British and the Americans using chemical weapons against their cities. So even the Nazis did not use chemical weapons, which is an interesting point. There's a long history. In fact, Britain used chemical weapons against the Kurds in Iraq in the 1920s. It was Winston Churchill was the one that authorized that. And of course, the people who supply these chemical weapons are really the criminals. But when we look at that, it's the government of the United States, the government of Britain, and possibly some other Western powers who had the technology and, of course, want to sell these weapons to the Iraqis, and they were urging Iraq to attack Iran. But what's interesting was Henry Kissinger was once asked about who he wanted to win the Iran-Iraq war, and his answer was neither. So they wanted to get the Iraqis and the Iranians to fight each other and to grind each other down and to weaken each other, and of course at the horrific cost of life. And while the West mainly supported Saddam in its attack against the Iranians, as did the Gulf states, and that there was in fact weapons and arms supplied by President Reagan and Oliver North through back channels where they're providing weapons to Iran for their own various reasons, but they want it basically for Iran and Iraq to destroy each other and to sit back and to, enjoy this process, which is quite a sick proceeding. So yes, I'm glad that Iran is taking this to the International Court of Justice, but do I expect that the American government officials and leaders and the British government officials and leaders who sold the weapons to Saddam and provided the technology to turn themselves over? I know that's not going to happen, but I think it's an important symbolic statement. It does expose the hypocrisy of the West, where Iran has been victims of weapons of mass destruction, and thousands of people killed and injured. And it is a horrific weapon that should be banned completely by the international community.
International human rights lawyer Edward Corrigan joining us from Ontario. Thank you for your comments, sir.